Hey guys, so welcome back to another video. So today we are continuing the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Um, Chapter 8, The Adventure of the Speckled Band. So last time we finished chapter 7, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. So let's continue from chapter 8. This is part 1 of chapter 8. I have been a companion of Sherlock on his cases for the past 8 years, and in these 8 years, I have documented about 70 cases. I have found cases that were tragic, that were comical, and a majority of them were outright strange. But I have never found a case that was normal. This was simply because Sherlock did not take cases for money, but for the art and joy. I don't think I remember any case which had more unique features than that of well-known Surrey family of the Royalots of Stoke Moran. In early April of 1883, I woke up one morning to find Sherlock looking at me standing by my bed. He had a habit of waking up late, and since it was only 7:45 a.m., I was a little surprised to see him. I apologize for waking you up so early, but this morning is a bit busy. Mr. Hudson woke me up and I in turn woke you up, Sherlock said. There's a client here. The young lady has arrived in a considerable state of excitement and is insisting on seeing me immediately. Young ladies who go around waking people up at this time usually have something important to communicate. Now should the case turn interesting. I am sure you would like to document the case from the beginning, he said. I told him that I would not miss the case for anything. I loved documenting his cases and the way in which he solved the cases. I rapidly dressed in a few minutes, joined Sherlock in the drawing room. A lady dressed in black and heavily veiled, who was sitting until we entered, stood up to greet us. Sherlock proceeded to introduce himself and then me to the lady. He asked her if she needed a hot cup of coffee because she was noticeably shivering. It is not cold which makes me shiver, but it is fear, Mr. Holmes. It is terror. She raised her veil as we spoke, and we could see that she was indeed in a state of fear. Her face was pale and her eyes restless, like those of an animal. Being hunted. She looked like she was a woman of 30, but her hair had already begun to grey. Sherlock looked at her with one of all his observing glances. Although he looked like he was devoid of emotions, Sherlock had a way of calming down his clients. He told the lady not to be afraid. And asked her if she had arrived by train. You know me? She asked with puzzled look. No, my lady, but I see you have a half ticket in your left hand. You must have started early to catch the train. You must have had quite a ride in the dog cart. The lady stood up in shock and stared at Sherlock as if she was looking at a witch. There is no mystery in my methods, madam, he said, smiling. On the left arm of your jacket, I can see the mud, and the marks are quite fresh. Only a dog cart throws up mud in that fashion," Sherlock explained. The lady calmed down and told us that she had started from home before 6 in the morning and reached Leatherhead after 20 minutes. She came in first train to Waterloo, she said. She could no longer stand in the strain, and she had no one who could help her. She came to know about Sherlock Holmes from her aunt, Mistress Farintosh. She said in a haggard voice, "Do you think you could help me, or at least shed some light on the darkness that surrounds me? I cannot give you anything for your service right now. I don't have any money, but I will be married within a month and will have control of my own income. Then I'll surely show my gratitude." Mr. Farintosh had been Sherlock's client before I had met him. Sherlock had an amazing memory and instantly recalled the case that he had solved more than 8 years ago. He promised the lady that he would try and offer the same care to her in the case as he had done with her friend. He then asked the lady to present us with the facts and details of the case that was terrorizing her. The lady took a deep breath and began her story. "The reason that I am so terrified is that my fears are based on pure suspicion. I have come to you for advice because I have heard that you can see deeply into the wicked and crooked intentions of the human heart. I am listening with all my attention. Pray tell me what bothers you," Sherlock comforted her. "My name is Helen Stoner. I live with my stepfather, who was the last survivor of one of the oldest families of Saxon, the Roylotts of Stoke Moran, on the western border of Surrey. My family was one of the richest some time back. Our estates extended over the borders into Berkshire in the north and Hampshire in the west. In the last century, however, 4 successive heirs turned out to be useless and led the family to ruin. The task was completed by one of them, who was a gambler. Only a few acres and an old house was left. The last squire led a very dreadful life of the pauper in the house, but his son, my stepfather, took an advance from the relative and studied to become a doctor. He had a huge practice in Calcutta, but was imprisoned when he beat up a native servant. Violence and anger leading to mania and hereditary problem in my stepfather's lineage. He married my mother in India. She was a widow of Major General Stoner of the Bengal Artillery. My sister Julia and I were twins and only 2 years old at the time of the marriage. My mother had a lot of inheritance and she gave it all to her husband. However, she allotted a sum to be given to each one of us. At the time of our marriage, when we returned to England from Calcutta, we went to live in his ancestral home, where a few years later my mother died in an accident. My stepfather became a different man now. Instead of making friends with the neighbors, he shut himself up in the house. He rarely came out, and whenever he did, he would get into squabbles with neighbors. A series of quarrels took place, some of them leading to police courts, and as a result my stepfather became the terror of the village. So that's it for part 1 of chapter 8, The Adventure of the Speckled Band. So from the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So that's it for this video. See you in the next video. Bye.